steadily, so slowly, kabling, it has landed in your court. Take it away, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much, Dora Maria. Can you hear me over there on Clubhouse? Can you hear me? Just making sure. Amazing, amazing. Okay, mic check is good. And if I can get everybody to do me a big old favor over there, let's unmute your mics right now and give a big old yay for Dora Maria dropping the mic in the house. Yay. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. We appreciate you. And for those of you that are watching us online, I'd love to give you shout outs as well. So go ahead and get in the comments. I see we got Dora Maria, Mary Lynn, we got Torika in the house, Judith, good to see you, Heather, we got Robert, Amanda, Terry. Okay. And here's the deal. I heard somebody was on stage a minute ago. I think it was Amanda. Amanda had mentioned something about, getting let go from a company. Hey, listen, that happens. Okay. I've been let go before. How many of you, whether you're watching on LinkedIn or you're tuning in on Clubhouse, if you've ever got the can, okay, you ever been, got the can, the pink slip, I just want you to put pink slip in the chat if you've ever had that happen to you before, because it's kind of a painful experience. I know I've had it happen. I remember 2008, 2009, the Great Recession. I was selling Harley Davidsons at that point, and I don't know if you guys know, people were losing their shirts, losing their jobs, losing all their money in the market. And listen, not many people were buying luxury motorcycles at that time. And that's what my job was. So guess what? I got caught up in the layoffs too. Okay. And it was a painful experience for me. I remember the anxiety, the fear, the stress, the pain, watching my bank account go backwards, all of that stuff. It was really, really stressful. And actually, I didn't handle it very well. If I'm being transparent, listen, I was drinking too much. I had a lot of stress, guys, anxiety, depression, even. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about what I do now. I get to help people make that transition a lot smoother, okay, in many, many different ways. So I have a couple things. There's a link above I want you to make sure you grab, okay? So the very first thing I want you to do is grab my LinkedIn optimization ebook, okay? It's a free ebook that's going to show you how to turn your profile into a landing page. Whether you are searching for a new career, okay? We need those employers to have a conversation with you when they land on your profile, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur or business owner, you're trying to close more deals, bring in more clients, it's for you too, all right? So make sure you grab that. It's a free link up above. And then I also have my Career Transition Summit. You guys can go through that. I'm going to show you how to put the human element back in the career search, okay? Because we know right now, you're using ChatGPT to write your resume. You're sending it in these online applications, and they're using systems and tools and AI even to weed you out. Okay, so you got computers fighting computers. Okay, AI fighting AI, right? Weeding people out. You're in the ATS, and it's no good. You're not getting any calls. Okay, we know what's happening. You're getting ghosted by employers. So I'm going to show you how to put the human element. How do you get people involved? How do you get the decision makers to actually look at you, have a conversation with you, recognize you, and see the value in you? Okay, so that you can get your cash flow back. That's what I want to help you to do. Make sure you join my free Career Transition Summit, and we'll make sure to get that rocking and rolling. But hey, listen, I've got an amazing episode for you guys today. I've got another world changer, somebody who's making moves, okay? Someone who's shaking things up, okay? And I'm going to introduce him in just a moment. Before I do that, though, I do want to see, I see George Need over there on LinkedIn. Good to see you. He says pink slip. Okay. I see you, George. Yeah, you got the pink slip. Listen, I've had the pink slip too. We all know. Okay. Let's see over here on Clubhouse. Yeah, we got Judith says pink slip. Okay. Yeah, I see a lot of you. You got pink slips too. So I want to help you guys with that. Make sure you come to my Career Transition Summit. And again, before I introduce my guest, I'm going to go ahead and reset the room in here. Let's rock. Let's roll. Let's go. Cash flow. Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. My name is Trevor Houston, and this is Breakfast with Champions, the Millionaire Breakfast Club. And this is your opportunity to get a seat at the table with those going the places you know you can go and doing the things you know you can do. Now, we don't see this clubhouse divider with a stage on top and an audience down below. No, 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 no. Instead, we look at this as the world's largest breakfast table. It's full of motivation, education, inspiration, and even a friendly competition with the positive intention of pushing your momentum in the right direction. Now listen, If you ever miss a segment, you can go download the Who You Know Show podcast, subscribe, and listen anytime. So head on over to whoyouknow.show, grab the link to subscribe. All right. So today I'm super excited. I want you to join us today because we got an inspiring conversation with my man, Rick Jordan. He's a true embodiment of self-made success. Rick shares his remarkable journey of building a public company from the ground up, all the while prioritizing his family and personal growth. As the host of the All In with Rick Jordan podcast, a captivating keynote speaker, and a respected media personality, Rick offers invaluable insights into achieving success in both business and life. So I'm super excited to have you here with us, Rick. Welcome to the Who You Know Show.
What's shaking, Trevor? Good to be here, man.
Man, it's good to have you here, and I love what you got going on, man. So I want to just kind of dive on in, if you don't mind. I want to learn more about the backstory, okay? I want to know about your journey and share how you got started and built the empire that you've got going from scratch. Like go back in time with us if we can. Let's do a time machine for the audience who doesn't know you and tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I can rewind, man, all the way back to what you were talking about just a bit ago. You know, like who's ever got the pink sheet? Who's ever gotten canned? You know, and you mentioned 2008. I was right at the beginning of that whole recession in 2007 when I was let go from Best Buy, myself and about 650 other people. Best Buy was a good part of my history because I wrote the sales playbook for their B2B division that they had. They were trying to launch a high-end business-to-business technology service provider, almost like a spin-off of Geek Squad, but at the higher end, because Geek Squad was totally like consumers, right? Going into homes, fixing computers, all that. And a little cool piece of trivia, I was the first Geek Squad agent in Chicago.
No way.
2003. Way, dude.
Wow.
I got photos, you know, I mean, they're sort of embarrassing because at that time.
Did you drive around in the Bug?
Oh, hell yeah, I did. Yeah, for sure, man. I mean,
Let's go.
I can say that I was so much the first one because my Bug was a stick. It was a manual trans.
No way.
Yeah, like the first three of us were manual trans. And then when they rolled it out to the rest of the company after Best Buy acquired Geek Squad, everybody was getting automatic transmission, you know? So yeah, but it was kind of fun. I had to learn to drive stick at that point. And I was maybe 23 years old, something like that, you know, but it's like, they're giving me this car. I got to be able to drive it, you know? So it was kind of a fun part of my experience, but
so you wrote the playbook over there. You helped them to their B2B, right? And and then all of a sudden you got the pink slip. What happened there?
Yeah. And the transition from that, because it's like, how do you go from Geek Squad to selling, right? Dude, I've been in sales since I was in McDonald's, for real. I always go back to 16 years old, 15 years old when I was at McDonald's. The best sales question ever is, would you like fries with that? I tell this story all the time, man, because it's the art of the upsell.
It's the next sale. It's the next sale.
Bingo.
Right? Like
bingo.
You have first sale is the hard one. The next sale is the easy one, actually.
Absolutely. That threshold that they cross psychologically, they've already made the transaction. They've already decided to spend the money, which means that they are ever so much exponentially likely to spend more right then and there, as long as you ask.
But I want to go back real quick, okay?
Yeah,
so
man.
when you got that pink slip from Best Buy, and you were the one that put all that energy into writing that playbook for them, right? Which I'm sure they probably even to this day are still using some of that, you know, what you created, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know you put so much of your energy, your heart into it. What did that feel like? Like, walk me through the emotional side of the next day, the next week, and how you got through that to, that next step and next journey for you.
Dude, I appreciate your question. And I love hosts like you because you dive into some things that I've never talked about before on any show. Because it's usually like, hey, let's go on to the next part. Let's talk about your success. Let's get onto this, right? It's like, that's a great part of your story. Cool, we understand, but let's get on to what you're doing now. The emotional side of that, dude, because a couple big factors going on. One, my twins were about to be born.
Oh, snap. You got twins too?
Yep,
wow.
Absolutely. They're 16 now, but my twins were about to be born when I found out about this. And it was about 2 weeks ahead of time. And during that moment, it's like, well, what do I do? So I'm grateful for FMLA, because in that moment, I was actually able to I had been with Best Buy, dude, for like 7 years. I started there part-time, working on their tech bench just like Friday nights and Saturday mornings just to get the discount. That's it. I was like 21 and 22.
Yeah, that's how they get people in the door. You're like,
exactly.
I need that PS5, but I don't want to pay that much, right?
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, of course, they learn in my background, like, hey, do you want to do this Geek Squad thing? I'm like, well, yeah, it sounds like a blast. I've done tech before this. Let's do this. I've done sales. Awesome. Let's rock this. But then during that time period, after I wrote this playbook, I trained all of these guys and girls to sell business technology solutions, and it was going great. There was one individual they brought in. This is the importance of management, and as we fast forward even to like public company days today with my company Reach Out, it's like the financial backers that I have are not necessarily betting on the company. They're betting on management. They're betting on me. So the management that was brought in to manage this B2B division, this technology division within Best Buy, tanked the thing within like 9 months, and they're like, okay, this isn't going to work. And so then they just decided to completely kill the division. There was about 700 people nationwide, 650 were let go. When I started seeing this, like, well, I've got a history. It's like I'm at a regional level right now. I've rolled out Best Buy for Business with the sales playbook. I literally trained and rolled out the country of Canada for Geek Squad.
Dang.
After they saw, it's like, my God, this guy can sell and work with customers. We're going to throw him up in Canada for 3 months for the Canadian Geek Squad rollout. So a lot of heart and soul, like you said, that was put into this. And then to go around and be like, okay, cool. So you're killing this division. Like, well, you can interview for other open positions. Like, awesome. There's other regional director roles, that I clearly fit. But dude, I learned the importance in large corporations, because at the time, I don't know what they're doing today. At the time, Best Buy was doing $34 billion a year in revenue. Large company, obviously, about 70,000 employees nationwide. And I learned the importance of social relationships and internal politics. Now, when I say the importance of, because I just saw this thing this morning that I'm going to do a podcast episode on, because people are like, it's like, work on things that people can't take away from you. Like your clarity, your mindfulness, your mindset, all this stuff. And I'm thinking, like, are you kidding me? It's like this whole quote is about being an isolationist. This whole quote is about like being that lone wolf, which to me is a very toxic perspective that people throw out there, and they're like, yeah, I'm the lone wolf. I go against the grain and all that. Now, I say this as a disruptor myself. I say this as a disruptor, but there's no way that you can have massive disruption and bring a lot of value to a lot of people in like healthy disruption unless you're working with other people.
So true.
So when I saw that in Best Buy, it was a big lesson that I learned, because I was blazing a trail, man. I was doing a lot of stuff, and my results were undeniable. But the problem is that I started seeing, now, even though it wasn't healthy selection of people who were interviewing for these other roles, I still learned from that. So the emotional side of it is like, man, I got shafted. It's like, so in this big corporation, I started to recognize that the relationships mattered. And even though I had great relationships, but I had great relationships within my circle, within those 650 people that continue going forward. It's like outstretching into other people beyond that was something that I had not learned yet. And I'm talking, I was only 26, 27 years old. That's it.
That's so good, because, when you're dealing with, especially with some corporate politics and things like that, right? I always talk with my job seeker community about, hey, listen, when you get let go, you need to reach out to the people you worked with in the past, right? And if you keep your circle small, right, then it's like, well, I don't really have that many people I could reach out to, right? But if you're building relationships and expanding those relationships within the organization that you work for, it doesn't have to just be the people that are in your tight-knit little circle, but go expand, reach out and be intentional about it. Be intentional about creating relationships outside of that little circle of the people you work directly with, right? And just go show some love outside of that little circle and watch what happens in the future, right?
It's powerful, man.
It's a seed that you plant that you're not going to see the immediate, you're not going to see the immediate results on that. It's going to be years from now. It's going to be years and years from now.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
What is something that you think that you could have done differently when you were at Best Buy that maybe could have prevented that from happening? Or what, maybe not prevented it, but what is something that you've thought of, I should have, could have, would have done it a little bit differently? Because I know people have those thoughts when they get into that position, they get let go.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
I did, but I got fired and let go from Harley Davidson. I remember I was like, oh man, I should have did this, should have did
Yeah,
that.
and I bet
Did you have
were
any
a
of those
top
thoughts?
producer too, man. You know, so it's like, what in the world? You know, why would they let me go? I'm sure you had that question yourself.
Yeah. Did you ever have any of those thoughts or anything that you're like, man, like even when I was in automotive industry and I left, I'm like, let me take some accountability for some of the things that, they didn't promote me. That's the reason why I made the decision to leave that industry.
Yeah.
But why didn't they promote me? What can I take accountability on? What was some of the things that I was doing, right? And so, did you ever have any of those thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, I did. I mean, during those moments, during that time period, I can't say that I did. It was more reflective thoughts years later. You know, thinking back in that moment. No, I mean, dude, I thought I was being straight up. It's like I was being wronged. You know, I put so much heart into the company. You know, I literally built this division for them in a $34 billion company. I've got twins coming. People knew that. It's like, how could you do this to me?
So there's a lesson there. Hold on, I want to dive into that.
Yeah,
there's a lesson there. So when it first happens, you're almost in a victim mentality, right?
For sure.
And you were, for all intents and purposes, like you. Hey, listen, they gave you the shaft, right? That's real.
Yeah.
Okay, you built them, and they gave you the shaft. But you go into that, and it's the oh, what was me? And it wasn't until years later that you reflected and you were like, maybe I could have done things a little differently, right? Like what were so okay, how do we, because I think there's so much power in accountability, right? That's where all the lessons are. So so how do we expedite that to get to that point where it's like a few years later where you get through the stinking thinking of, man, I'm under attack, right?
I can tell you what I did. And so when I think back to that moment, when I say in that moment, it's literally in that moment, because at that point I had so much else going on. I mean, literally my twins were on the way, like it's set to be induced in 2 weeks. You know, so I did the FMLA thing, took 8 weeks off paid because I'd been with the company for 7 years, man. I had time stored up. I took that time off, and dude, it was for real, like one of the biggest blessings I've ever had in my life for that timing. It just absolutely incredible. And during that time, the thing that can get you out of that stinking thinking, as you called it, out of the victim mentality, which I can say truthfully that I never sat in. There was moments of anger and feeling like the victim, absolutely. Because, you know, I always say it's like Tony Robbins says, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. But let's be real, that things genuinely do actually happen to you. But then the for you part is something that you have to actively transition into, and that requires action.
It's how you react to it.
You got it. So getting out of that mindset of like, man, people are wronging me. The only way to get out of that mindset is to do something about it. And it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with you.
Let's go. Mic drop. Seriously, I mean, that's the lesson here, right? That's the huge lesson here. And I wanted to dive into because, you know, our audience deals with this stuff all the time. They're going through it every single day. And it's like, okay, your previous employer was a jerk. They did this, they did that. They didn't promote you. Like in my case, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. They fired you. You got the pink slip. But what are you going to do about it?
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen people do that'll sit on unemployment for, like in Illinois, it's like I'm in Chicago, right? The full 6 months. I mean, during the pandemic, I saw people sit on unemployment for the full 18 extended months. Yeah, and that's the scenario, right? Because so after this took place, the action, I was present with my kids. It was great. But dude, immediately I'm like, I've been wanting to go out and do something on my own for the longest time. This seems like the perfect opportunity. I'm just going to go after it.
That's the word. That's the word, opportunity, right?
Bingo.
Like, how can we turn the setback into a setup? Okay. And that's what you did. How do we look at this as an opportunity? And it's again, it's all mindset. It's half glass empty, half full, right? And how do we look at it as your key word, opportunity? And a lot of people are unhappy with what they do anyways. A lot of people hate their job. And so they get let go from a job they hate and they're bitter about it. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on. You hated your job anyways. Like, this is an opportunity to change your life.
Bingo.
Right?
You got it, man.
It's all mindset.
It sure is. I mean, with everybody, you know, the millions of people that are listening to us right now, when you're in that moment, the only thing that will get you out of that moment, that crappy moment, will be doing something about it. That's it. And that's the thing. I mean, because if you're If you're feeling, it's the same, like if you're looking in the mirror and you're feeling bad about your body, workouts. If you're looking in the mirror, and you don't like your hair, go get a haircut.
Hey.
If you got fired, you got the pink sheet, go look for another job or start a business.
Yeah.
What matters is not what happened to you. What matters is what you do next with it. And that converts it into what's happening for you.
I love the energy from this. This was so great. I didn't know we were going to go here with this, but this is awesome. I really do. Okay. I do want to, transition a little bit here. So, that happened to you. You got the pink slip from Best Buy after building their empire. And then what happened next? I know you've got, your business that you grew. Did you immediately get into business for yourself, or did you get back into a corp? You did? Okay.
Immediately. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been something I was dabbling in, and this is another lesson that I learned. It's right for me. I don't know if it's right for everybody else. I used to call the side hustle the most potent virus to entrepreneurship.
Say that again. The most potent
virus to entrepreneurship.
Okay, explain it. Unpack that for me.
There were years prior to this moment. I'm talking 7-ish years, because when I was 17, I was being trained. I was working at Radio Shack to be a store manager. At 18, 3 days after my birthday, because they have to give you an alarm code, and you can't have an alarm code unless you're 18. So I was at that time the youngest store manager in the company out of 6,000 plus stores, and they taught me how to read financial statements, but then they give you complete control over this $1 million business that they hand you. To where you're controlling the ordering, the labor expenses, the rents. You can negotiate with the landlords. Literally everything, because you're bonused on profitability. So it's like jumping into that, having complete control over that. And then thinking back, it's like when I was 20, it's like, man, I really want to do something on my own. So I started these side things. Literally like side hustles. I started, it was like the year 2000, right at the peak of when web hosting was starting to take off, and I'm like, cool, I'm going to do that. But then I saw it as a saturated market. I'm like, this is going to be tough. I'm selling, $19 a month, which means to make real money off of this, I got to sell like 1 million of these things. So it's a low ticket, high volume play. It's like, that's not what I want. I tried a couple more things over those 7 years, doing like cable internet installations on the side, getting paid $50 a pop, and then trying to start a business partnering with the cable companies to do that. That was a flop, and there was probably 7 or 8 more things that were straight up flops. And I fully believe the reason why they were flops is because my attention was divided.
Let's go. That's it. I want to dive into that. Okay. That's the next lesson. Okay. So I'm in financial services, and I teach a lot of new agents and advisors who come through in the firm, and I get to mentor them and stuff like that. And there's a lot of things that we can do in our industry.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, it's like one of those Swiss Army knives. Like, there's a lot of different tools, right? We can do so many things. We can do, estate planning. We can do life insurance, long-term care, investments. It's just like boom, 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 boom. There's so many things, right? So they get licensed to be able to do all of these things. And they're a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, right on.
And I'm like, hey, listen, there's a reason why you're not so successful, is because you're all over the place. Like, you're trying to be, everything all at once. And I'm like, you're never going to get good at anything doing it with that strategy. You need to focus, niche down, okay? Be able to speak to the other things, right? Be able to speak at a high level to those other issues and identify opportunities, but then just refer that opportunity to the expert who is the expert in that.
For sure.
Right.
And I'm going to tag on that a little bit, because when you have all those things, getting everything that you mentioned, it's like estate planning, life insurance and all of those things. They do have a common thread.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely have a common thread, which means setting somebody up for some kind of wealth in their future.
Correct.
Some kind of sustainment in their future. So if that's something that you can sell to somebody in that framing, everything that you're saying, if you want to niche down and specialize in something, pick the thing that's going to make you the most money out of that. You can even outsource those other things.
That's it.
Put it together as a bundle, but somebody else can fulfill that for you.
Correct. 1000%. Like, you don't have to be the expert at everything. This is what I tell them. You don't have to be the expert at everything. You need to be able to speak to it. Like you were talking about, if it's creating wealth or doing whatever, right? Like, you need to be able to speak to it and identify those opportunities. You'll know them when they come, And when you go through the fact finding and you're going through discovery and you're doing that, you need to be able to identify opportunities, but have that thing that you do. And I always bring up the analogy of the general doctor and the specialist. Like your general doctor and your specialist, they get paid different. Okay. Your specialist makes a lot more money, and you want to be known for something. You want to be the go-to. When people think of that thing, they think of you. And if you're so out there and you do everything, you're not gonna be known for
especially when you're
thing.
first starting out. And this goes back to the side hustle that I was talking about. It's like, because right now, I had my cybersecurity company, my IT company, for 8 years before I launched my personal brand. And because someone could see like a personal brand as a side hustle. It's like, that's when I started my podcast, which is almost 500 episodes now.
Let's go.
2% worldwide. I'm grateful for that, but that's because it's been consistent for almost 6 years now.
Same. When did you get started? I got started January of 2018.
Yeah,
we just
1
hit
year
6 years.
Afterwards, January of 2019. So 5 years ago for me. Yep.
Nice.
Almost 500 episodes, bro. And it's but in that moment, it's like when you want to go after something else, it's like I had already built the foundation in my main thing to where I had systems and people and structure in place so that it could sustain itself with just guidance from me. And that's the time when you can actually branch out and do a bunch of other things. Now I'm going to talk about being all in for a sec, because that's who I am. That's I'm the all in CEO. I got it right here on my cup, right?
That's your brand, man. Yeah,
exactly.
What does it mean to you to go all in business and in life? And what does it mean for you when that statement, what does that mean?
Yeah, dude, it means, it doesn't mean like hustle culture. And I want to say what it's not first. It isn't hustle culture. There's times to hustle, but there's also times to put that hustle in and build that foundation that I'm talking about so that it can be sustained. For me, going all in is like today, dude, I'm at 100%. I can give 100% today. If I give anything less than my 100% today, that means that I'm not all in today. I could be distracted. There could be something pulling me, likely something that I'm allowing. But there's days, man, to where I wake up and it's like, man, I just don't feel it today. I'm feeling like 40% today, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally. But if I go in, so it's like, maybe it's like, you know what, I'm going to put in like maybe 3 or 4 hours today. And then I'm just going to go do whatever, if it's, taking one of my kids out, whatever it is. But that's the thing. It's like, if you only have 40% today, you sure as hell better give that entire 40%.
Ooh, wait a minute. Where's my mic? Hold up. Mic drop. Let's go. That was me yesterday, by the way. Yesterday, I was not 100%. Okay. Like my energy
happens, bro.
Super off. And what I've identified for myself, and listen, I have a high energy for the most part. But when my energy is off, I'm tired. I'm literally tired, and I need sleep. I need to rest. I need to take a nap. Like for real, I need a nap. And I noticed that like I'll get into some of the stinking thinking when my energy is low like that.
Yeah.
I start like everything is bigger than it should be. All the problems are bigger than it should be. And I'm like, okay, I've identified that. I need sleep. I need to just get a nap. And then it like resets my mind, my mindset, right?
Yep.
What do you do? What are some of the things that you do that, like you said, you're 40%, but are you giving all 40? How do you get yourself back to 100? How do you fill the tank?
Yeah, a lot of it's really awareness, because there was times, maybe it's age, brings wisdom. I don't know, dude. I'm 44 now, right? And so I look back, it's like I used to still try to push through. And there's moments to do that for real. Like if there's like a critical thing that's happening, like going public, for an example, right? Getting audited, for like the 10K we filed, my first 10K ever, filed it last week, 3 months after going public. And it's like, there were moments, it's like, man, there's all this stuff to do. I'm only feeling like 53% today. But today's a day, because I have this deadline and these severe consequences, from the SEC, that if this filing isn't in, it's like, today's a day I need to push through, regardless of whether it's just 53% that I have. I still have to keep going. There's those moments, but those are rare, dude. The most of the urgency and the criticalness of what we need to do is nothing but made up in our own minds. They're self-imposed. Most deadlines are self-imposed. Now, I'm saying in a bad way, but there's also ways to do that in a good way. So if you're in that day to where it's like only 53%, the awareness of that is something that you have to develop and be wise about, because otherwise it's just ego. I think back 15 years ago, I would push through, and dude, it was just ego. It's like, come on, I'm better than this. Just push through this. I can get all this stuff done today. And I recognize that on those days, if I gave that 53% when I only had 53%, that was still going all in for that day. Because if you push beyond that on those days, there is a point of diminishing return. And then it just begins to drain you almost into like the negatives, to where you have to crash, you have to take a few days off, and it just puts you in this mode. So recognize your own limitations. It's an awareness thing. And this is something you have to practice and build the muscle over time. But now everybody who's listening is now aware of this factor too, right?
Well,
so
and to my, like with my story yesterday, literally I went through this exact same thing yesterday. Now I was aware, and so I did what I know I needed to do. And this is gonna sound like weird. People are gonna be like, dude, you went home, took a nap? Hell yeah, I went home, took a nap. I needed it. Okay. I needed it because I was not functioning correctly. And like, so, but what still the issue I still have is I beat myself up over it. Like, cause I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like I'm my own worst critic. I'm like, dude, you taking a nap, bro? Like, I know I needed it, so I did it anyways. But I'm like, I feel like I'm not going all in. I feel like I'm not giving it all. And I'm like, if I were to hire or fire myself that day, I probably would have fired myself that day.
Dude, that because I'm like compassion for yourself too. It's self-love, no joke. So in those days, maybe I might coach you a little bit here.
All right, no.
It's like,
love it. Let's do it.
Those days, it's like my anchor point for those days, and what gets me over that, rather than beating myself up, it's like I know there's days where I'm at 100%, where I'm good for 12, 13 hours of straight work. So it's like, you know what? Today's a day that I'm off, and it's okay. Because I know there's a day coming in the next couple of days to where I can blast through 12, 13 hours. And it's not a makeup thing, for today, because otherwise it's like saying that it's a bad thing that you just are low energy for a day, because that's life. Let's be real. Life still happens, but you know that it's happened before, where you have put in the 12 to 13 hours with no issue. And that's your anchor point. It's like you look back, it's like, I know I'm still going to get done what I need to get done. It's going to still be there in the morning. I know that this weekend I can plan ahead, because I know that this day I'll be open. And then it's like you're already prepping your mind for that day, that I'm going to be 110% on Saturday, because I'm setting myself up for that. And then that's when I'm going to bust through these things that I need to bust through. Maybe even the stuff that I don't want to do. But it's an anchor point, because everybody who's listening, dude, can look back to points to where they've crushed it. Just like everybody can look back to points where, like, man, I sucked. You can always look back to points where you crushed it for that day or that week or that year, and be like, that's who I am. Well, today is not necessarily who I am, but that's who I am. And I know tomorrow that's who I'll be again after I take a nap.
Yeah, there you go. And, to your point, right? Like, I did it anyways. Okay. Even though I was beating myself up, if I'm being honest with you, I was beating myself up about it, but I'm like, I don't care. I need it. So I did it. And look, today I'm like full of energy. I could take over the world today. Like, today is one of those days that I don't care what mountain's in front of me. Like, I'm going to get through. My mindset is so, like, I will overcome. There's nothing that can hold me back today. Right. Yesterday, it was like the smallest things, because my energy was low. The smallest things were like a mountain. It's like, oh my gosh, this issue, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I'm like, nope, I need to shut it down, reset the computer, right? Like, that's what I know. So anyways, that's awesome, man. I appreciate you giving me permission to do that. I'll stop beating. I'm going to stop beating myself up over
Thanks
it.
for allowing me to coach you a little bit too. Cause I mean, it's not necessary. I mean, that'll get you in that cycle. That beating up yourself will put you in a perpetual pattern of that if you don't stop it.
Ooh.
And that's where, I mean, bringing this full circle, for this part of the conversation back to when you get fired, when you get the pink sheet, it's like, what did I do wrong? All those people did me wrong. All of that, that's the cycle that you can get stuck in if you don't take action, So today it's like, cool, dude, yesterday you took a nap, but today you're back at it. That's your action now. You didn't
1,000.
you didn't run into today, right? And be like, man, I really sucked ass yesterday. You know, today's another day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yesterday's done. I can't go back and do a thing about yesterday. Only thing I can do today is go all in.
Yeah,
You like
bingo.
that? You like that?
Hey.
All right. So, as the host of the All In with Rick Jordan podcast, okay, everybody that's listening to this show needs to go check him out. All In with Rick Jordan podcast.
Thank you, brother.
First of all, what inspired you to start that? Okay, you've done it for 5 years now, 500 plus episodes. What are some of the topics you explore? And then what I'd like to talk about is some of the benefits of podcasting. What's maybe some of one of the best top relationships that you've built through podcasting? Because that's one of the things I love about podcasting is the relationships.
For sure.
But first, tell me about like what the show's about, what inspired you to create it, and then maybe give me one of your top guests that you've built a strong, like game-changing relationship with.
Yeah, for sure, man. One of the I always laugh about the reason why I started it, because when I reference like 2018, I was like, cool, I'm launching my personal brand. I did some stuff on TV for the first time that year, hired a media coach, spoke at some entrepreneurial events that I paid to be at. When you're first starting, it's like there's one circulating now, again, like my literal first talk when I launched my personal brand, when I was speaking in the NASDAQ boardroom in New York, to about 100 entrepreneurs. And it was almost like foreshadowing, because now I have a public company, and I intend to list on NASDAQ. It's kind of cool. But the podcast itself, when I hired a branding agency, because I'm like, I've never done this, and this is before like the era of, because you're talking 2018, this is fast forward through the pandemic. It's like, that's when everybody decided I want a personal brand and want a podcast. Right. And True. I still think I got on the train late, because I believe that I did. Yep. So I hired this agency towards the end of 2018, and no joke, this is why the podcast started. They just looked at me. They're like, you need a podcast. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So they set me up with a studio, and one of the best relationships that I created out of that, was Brad Lee.
Exactly. Yes. Mic drop. Love him.
He's awesome, dude. And I've been on Dropping Bombs a couple of times now, after making a movie once, but then also starting the personal brand. Dude, when I've even done like TV appearances in Vegas, I'm like, I already checked out of my hotel, bro. News Nation wants me on to talk about this. Do you have like an empty office I can go? It's like, yeah, sure. Go in and see Maria, the front desk. So the relationship has just been huge, out of that, and the circles that have formed from that. That's one of the, told me to mention one, but it goes back that long, to where I've been on his show twice. I mean, his show is ginormous,
Well, I actually got I put together a guest wish list.
Yeah.
Right, of the top 50 like people I would love to have on this show. He's actually on it. He's on my wish list. So I'm just saying, it's all about who you know, man. Exactly. If you want to hook me up, bro, if you got a good,
absolutely, man.
I'd love that. He's seriously, he's got an awesome program. So I'd love to connect with him if there's any way possible, if you got that kind of relationship. But
we'll get it going for sure.
Phenomenal.
So this amazing branding agency, they told me, it's like, you need a podcast. I'm like, sure. That sounds good. And speaking on stages, performing on stages, I look back from today previous, and I did the math, a couple months ago. And it's like, I've been on over 5,000 stages when you count what I did in the church arena, because I'm still an ordained pastor.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. I launched 3 churches.
Whoa.
Always as the worship pastor, and plus the executive pastor, the business side of things, and so playing guitar, singing, talking, all of that, it's like over 5,000 stages. So when it came to that, like, they're like, you need a podcast. I'm like, all right, cool.
Do you know Tamara Andrews?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm gonna connect you with her, because she does a lot of that too, and she's all on stages, and she has
awesome.
her podcast, and she's and it's all all faith based. And anyway, I'm gonna connect you with her, because she does a lot with the churches too. So
yep, that's cool, man. Thank you.
100%.
All of this, launching that, so the podcast, the benefit that I've seen out of it outside of the relationships is social proof. Hardcore social proof. And this has to do with anything, whether what you're doing on social media. You don't have to have 500,000 followers on something like you and I do. It's more it's more you just have to be findable, and you have to put out there exactly who you are. People talk about authenticity, but everything, it's like I say this to people that just started my company, and they're like, dude, you're like the same person. I'm like, yeah, that's what you get. You get the same Rick, whether I'm in front of camera or whether I'm just talking to you in your office. There's no character that's here. And it's been that way since the beginning. Now, finding your rhythm is a completely different story. Like finding your voice is a completely different story when it comes to your brand. But still you're putting yourself out there because you actually have to kind of learn how to be that authentic. And the only way to learn how to be that authentic is actually to go through this process. And all it is that it's not so much of like, I want to be somebody else. What I discovered is it's more like I'm peeling the layers away from me. Because everybody has taught me, everybody's taught you to have this surface level thing. Yeah, and that's not what people really crave and really dive into. It's like there were moments, dude, I look back, I even played my first TV appearance from 2018 in the office here a little bit ago. Like walked into the conference room and like, check this out. And I started laughing at myself. I'm like, see how badly I sucked? My very first one. At that point, I was still on a couple thousand stages, and here's me fumbling around in front of a camera.
That's what I was going to say. So, your first episode, right? Like I look back at our first episode back in 2018. It was January 2018, our first episode, and it was awful. It was so bad. It was so kind of polished and scripted and just wasn't fluid and just wasn't authentic, to your point. But I think you start to, again, like what you were saying, you start to peel back over time. You start to peel that back. And a podcast is actually a great, like, I know your first, like my first podcast appearance on someone else's show, right, was way before I started my own podcast. And I remember I went on and it was the same way. I was terrified. I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what do I do? But over time it becomes super comfortable, and you actually can get really transparent, sometimes too comfortable, where you say things and you're like, wait a minute, this is being recorded. Like, talk to me about that. Have you ever been on a podcast or even on your own show where you felt so good, so comfortable, you said something and then you're like, ooh, I wish I could pull that back in. I wish I could reel that one back in.
Yeah, wow, it's hard to think of that because now it's like stuff comes out of my mouth like, well, I am who I am. Like, this is who you get. It's unfiltered.
Any topics that you talk about that are controversial that maybe you're like, I don't know if I should go there, or I want to go there? Like I know for myself, there's topics that I want to dive into, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I should I don't know if I should go there. Right. Anything like that for you?
There's some, because there's always still that check, and the only check for me is, do I still have compassion and empathy when I talk about this? I mean, even something that I just put on Instagram today, because I type these things out, but just on my story, but then it's a Mr. Rick Jordan. If you want to go look at it, it's like, don't judge someone for a situation you've never been in. I mean, it's just that simple. It's something I was just thinking about. I think a lot about things when I'm eating breakfast in the morning, and I threw that out there. But then that's the thing. It's like, I will talk about scenarios all the time, and as long as I still retain compassion and empathy, I can be just as hard hitting. I can be just as direct, and express my viewpoint on these things while still having that empathy and compassion for the person who's going through whatever. I've got an episode coming out here within the next 2 weeks. I just recorded it, and it's a solo. It's just me. But you might say I go on a rant, a little bit, and it's about trauma. Because it's like a lot of us have that. So, I mean, that can be, in your point, a touchy topic, and the touchy topic that I talk about is throwing this trauma out there almost as if it's like an excuse for not performing, or an excuse to stay stuck, because if it's like, oh, well, you know what, I can't do that because of my trauma. You're like, I acted this way because of my trauma, and it's not taking ownership or self-accountability for that, about what you're going to do about it. So I mean, it's hard hitting, and I mean, there's points to where, I mean, I even say like, shut the F up on the show, because it's like, whatever. People sometimes need to hear this stuff, maybe to jolt them to awake. But at the same time, it's like, I'm compassionate for you because I've been in your situation. It's not like what I put, don't judge, someone for a situation you've ever been in. Dude, I've had traumas. I've worked through traumas. I probably still have some that I haven't uncovered. So in those moments, it's like, sometimes I still have that little holdback that you're talking. It's like, should I talk about this on a show? you know, and it's like, well, if it's within me, that's peeling those layers back. So I'm going to let it out.
Yeah.
And it's okay, because the right people it'll resonate with, the wrong people it won't, and that's fine.
Yeah, the wrong people will go away from you, right? I mean, and you'll find your tribe, the people who align with what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And you know, have you ever had you got shadow banned?
Yeah, a few years ago when I created a documentary on the pandemic. That was the second time I was on Brad's show that I was talking about when the movie was releasing. So I mean, that was a very politicized scenario, even though I wasn't presenting it as a political topic. It was just like, this is what's happening. You know, I mean, when I'm interviewing somebody in a salon who stayed open in Salem, Oregon, and you got people like walking up with a pizza box putting death threats right in the middle of the interview. I'm like, that's real shit. You know, that's straight up happening right now. It's like, that's the state of the country. So it's like, how are you okay with yourself when you're doing those kinds of things? So
yeah, that's awful. I always felt like I saw those stories about, you know, here was my opinion on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like the government has any right to tell us when we can work or not work. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I just don't feel like they have zero right to tell me how I can provide for my family. Like, I think about it. It blew my mind when it was all coming down and everything was, you know, everybody was shutting down. And I was like, wait a minute. Cause I'm here in Dallas, Texas. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. Y'all shut down Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
You shut down the Dallas Cowboy. Like, you told Jerry Jones he can't do that. And he listened. A billionaire listened to that nonsense. I'm like, and all these big corporations were like, yeah, sure. We'll just do it. We'll just shut down our business. And I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Yep.
How all this pressure from up top? I'm like, what? It just didn't make sense to me, but I know what all these corporations were worried about. They're worried about lawsuits. They're worried about, you're worried about, somebody getting sued.
Exactly. Because it's like, and I looked at that. So it's a situation, like I've talked, don't judge others for a situation you've never been in. It's like, I had a cybersecurity company. My company was critical infrastructure. We were not, quote unquote, shut down. And I'm seeing all these people. It's like, what makes me better? There's nothing that makes me better as a human or the ability to provide for my family.
Oh, they kept those liquor stores open for sure.
No joke. Yeah. And then states passing new laws like Illinois, where I live. It's like, okay, we're going to allow taking liquor home now from restaurants on DoorDash or whatever, you know, it was interesting. It's like, we need a little liquid to get us through this thing. But in those scenarios, you know, I'm taking a look around. It's like, I'm critical infrastructure. But then I looked at these large corporations and I started to try to put myself in their shoes. I'm like, it's a no-win scenario. And they're making the decision on what is the least financial risk to the company. And the least financial risk was to abide and shut down. Otherwise, to your point, it's like, if we stay open and then we get sued by employees for this exposure to this toxic work or dangerous work environment because of this virus floating around. So it's like, it was a no-win scenario, man. So it's like, what's the lesser of two evils? What's the least bad choice out of this? And it was okay. So billionaires were like, all right, well, then we're going to shut down.
Yeah. You know? And once it's like dominoes, once you see, okay, well, Toyota shut down. So, I mean, they're a big company. I mean, and like the executives are talking about this, dude, Toyota just shut their doors. And dude, I mean, look, this company did, like, we got to make a move. We got to do something, or else, like, if everybody shuts down and we don't, and somebody gets sick and dies, and we're going to get sued. And, like, you know what I mean? The pressure is going to be on us. So I understand too, like, to your point, but it still is like, wow, I can't believe that happened. And how easy it happened too. Like, I felt like it was just like, yep, we're shutting the doors. And it's like, wow, everybody shut down.
For sure.
Crazy.
That movie was, I mean, that was the second time I was on Brad's show dropping bombs. The first time coming back to the podcast, dude, I was nervous as hell, you know, because it was like young in my personal brand. Here I am going on this big show, you know. When he invited me back for the movie, it was just, I mean, it was a few years later and it was like smooth, you know, just no problem, confidence. And because I had peeled back a lot of those layers of myself too. But even in what we're talking about with, you know, that decision of like the least bad choice, the least worst scenario is, there's a lesson that I learned from that. And I see it in business now, especially being a public company, is sometimes that is the nature of your decision. You know, because sometimes I always try in those scenarios to find an option C, you know, to be like, what's the best path forward? But there's sometimes when you're looking at business, and especially when you're looking at scaling, it's like, what is the least bad choice here? Because regardless, there's probably going to be some pain going through this. And it's like, I've seen other quotes, right? It's like the pain, you know, whether you stay or whether you go, there's still going to be pain. You know, whether you choose right or you choose left, there's still going to be pain. And sometimes that is the reality of running a business. So if it's going to be tough. I mean, if there's people who are listening that want to do what I did, maybe they're itching and they got the side hustle, you know, first off, I'm going to tell you, if you're going to treat it as a side hustle, it's never really going to take off until you give all of your attention to it. Now you have to decide what that threshold is for you, you know, where you're at there, but don't try 8 different things at the same time. Pick one. If it doesn't work out, then you can try something else. You know, and I encourage you to try a lot of things until you get it hit, but whatever it is, give your undivided attention to it. Now, when you do cross that threshold, there will be times when you're trying to scale where it will get extremely tough. And that decision, it's like, what's the least bad in the moment? You know, is it stay where you're at? And you've got to decide this on your own, whoever's listening, man. Is it stay where you're at? You know, you're comfortable, you have a lifestyle business, because at some point, because the world ends up costing more money and more money as time goes on, it's like that same place is going to become more and more painful. Or is it embracing the pain of being able to learn a new skill set, enhance your offerings, find a new product, hire somebody, let go of your ego and allow somebody else to have delegated authority so that you can actually expand where you're at? That's also very painful, learning that. You know, so it's like, what's the better of the bad choices if you look at it from that moment?
I love that. I love that because, you know, I think that's something that we can all relate to. Right.
Yeah.
We all have that crossroads where we're like, should I leave or should I go?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even in just like, you know, divorce and stuff like that too, right? They even have it's cheaper to keep her, right? That saying, right? So like, it's like, which option here is the least painful? Okay. And I'm not saying again, one's right or the other, but just in life, when you are facing those crossroads, you know, to go with the least painful. But sometimes though, maybe it's like, okay, well, this might be the least painful, but no risk, no reward. So, okay, this might not hurt as bad, but maybe there's not the upside.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe I'm willing to take a more painful hit. Like I'm willing for this really to suck really, really, really bad if I have this opportunity for upside. Right.
Yeah. The pain, a lot of times in those circumstances, if somebody's stuck in a pattern, I've seen that the pain to stay the same has to become greater than the pain to change. And then that's when somebody will finally make a move. However, what we're talking about, dude, is trying to become aware of that ahead of time and see that into the future. It's like, okay, if I do this, you know, it's like, what really am I bringing upon myself by not changing my scenario, by not changing who I am, you know, by not growing who I am to continue to get after what I want. You know,
100%.
It doesn't matter if you think you're going to make a mistake, because fear keeps you. It's like, you know, I'm going to screw up. I'm going to cause bad things for myself or people around me if I do this, you know, but who cares, dude? It's like, if mistakes are made, whatever, that's good, because it also means that decisions are being made.
I love this conversation. This is so good. I have a couple other things I wanted to dive into today while we still got some time here. So one of the things is you mentioned you're a keynote speaker. You've been on a lot of stages, crushing the game there. What are some of your key messages, right, that you give? And then what are you hoping that the audience takes away from your message?
Yeah, you bet, man. A lot of it is mindset and empowerment. And it's I love that. I mean, even in the middle of a panel last week that I spoke on, you know, a lot of people don't like panels because it's like I have to share the stage with people. I freaking love them.
I like panels.
Because it's typically
it's like a podcast interview. It's very fluid. A panel is a podcast interview, right? Like in a way.
Yeah. What I really love is when my other panelists have such large egos that all they do is talk about themselves and they forget. And I'm saying this it's entertaining for me. It's a little annoying, but it gets to a certain threshold. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to do something about this, because they start to forget about the people that are there, you know, and I love providing value for the people that are in the seats, you know? So at one point, last week. It was awesome. I love this because I'm looking at these two guys and I'm being very respectful, courteous, and they say two things and I just couldn't take it anymore, bro, because they were talking about themselves, and I'm like, so they answered one question from the moderators, about halfway into it, and then I just had my mic and I turned out to, I'm like, you guys want real talk? Like, yeah, so I jump off the stage, and get into the crowd and just start talking and pouring into them. So you talk about the stuff that I get into. It's like
those other panelists hated you, bro. They
sure did, dude.
They hated you. I already know it because you stole the show from them. Like you totally, you ate their lunch, bro, and you took the opportunity because they were sucking up the stage, man, and you just grabbed the mic and rolled with it. They hated you, bro. How did you deal with that? Hold on. How did you deal with that?
At first, these two guys, they were like, "Oh, this is what you do." It's like we should talk afterwards and do business together, and all. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. There might be some synergies, as there usually is. It's like forming the relationship, but then halfway through, it's like afterwards when all that took place, it's like they were gone, dude. They just bolted out of the room, and everybody was flocking around where I'm at. It's like, how can I keep pouring value into these people even afterwards?
That's awesome.
But it was worse, dude, because I laugh, but it's like, I hope anybody who's listening just understands that the reason why you're on stage is for the people that are listening to you. It's nothing to elevate you. It's to elevate them, and by that process they will elevate you. So that's the approach you have to take. But then after I jumped off the stage and went on like this 10-minute like let's get together, let's focus on what really matters here, because about acquiring companies and everything, it's like it's about your number, then everybody else will be taking it, just a whole bunch of great stuff, empowering them to think the right way. And then the moderator goes like, well, Rick, why don't you just stay out there and field some questions for us? That was like the nail in the coffin for these poor other two guys, man.
Wow.
It was a good time. But yes, that's the stuff I talk about is about, getting on the straight path, because it's a lot about eliminating the own, some people call it head trash. I call it self-limiting beliefs. It's like confronting those things. There's other things, to where it can be tactical. It's like the 5 things I learned from having a personal brand. I love talking about that and the importance of it, even if it's not going to be like a global brand like I've got or like you have. It's like you still have to have something, whether you like it or not. You have a brand. What you're presenting is your brand, and that's what people will attach onto. If there's nothing to attach onto, nothing can be a brand for real. So it's like it's important. So that's another talk. There's 3 or 4 that I typically go back to, but I love reading the room, man. And it's only because
you get the energy from the room, right?
Yep.
I just think that is so cool what you did. You're like, you know what? Let's get real. You jumped off stage. I just know those other panelists, man. Like,
poor guys.
They were like, man, screw Rick.
Yeah.
But you know what? They should have been bringing the real. You know what I mean? If they're just up there talking about themselves and not adding any value, just trying to stroke their own egos and stuff like that. I've seen that too, and it's like, man, you're just saying, yeah, I got all these followers and I got this and I got that. And it's like, come on, man, you're not bringing any value to the stage or to the audience.
Exactly. And, it was like after every single statement they made, and this is a bad move. And if you're on a panel, it is for people. After every single statement, it's like, well, if you work with us or if you come work with me, I'm like, come on, guys. It's like, these people are here to learn. They are going to naturally want to work with you or receive more from you if you pour into them right now. That's the natural symptom, almost side effect from being able to give the room value. You don't have to keep plugging yourself at the end of each sentence.
Yeah, they're going to flock to you like they did to you. They're going to flock to you because they want to know more. I mean, and so, yeah, and you were real and authentic. And what's the word? I'm looking for a specific word where people approachable,
Yeah.
like you know, sometimes, and I think that I could probably have a lesson in being more approachable, because sometimes I come off with so much conviction and this, that, and the other, and I can be like blah blah blah, that I think people are maybe a little bit timid to come talk to me, and so it's a lesson I need to learn in myself. How do I become more approachable? What about yourself? I mean, you said that they were coming running up to you, so what are some things that you can teach us about becoming a little bit more approachable so people feel okay reaching out and asking questions and all that? Because that's what we want. We want them to come up to us at the end of the day.
It's the the relativity, and it's something that you can present. And this is a skill that I had to learn because I still to this day, it's if you take a look outside yourself, it's like, dude, you got a big show, right? So it's like anybody learning podcasting is just naturally going to be intimidated by you. You know, for me, somebody who's taking a company public has a good personal brand. It's like people are just naturally going to be intimidated because they don't at that moment see themselves in you or vice versa. Yeah, so making those connecting points, so throwing little things in, like I had a sellers dinner where I'm trying to find people to buy, like hosted 15 people. I mean, it's like I started out with like literally I had a photo of me on like with Geek Squad up there. It's like this is where I started, you know, and then right next to that is like me, because I mean now I'm fit, I'm muscular. It's like, but this photo of when I started the company after I got laid off, there's my 3-year-old daughter on my lap, me with a laptop trying to get the business going with a big old gut. You know, so it's like this was me, you know, and there's obviously been a journey since then, but it's like I am you.
That's in one way or another. Good. That is so good. It's because people love a transformational story. They love the transformation. Here's where I was like, and I try to do that. If you notice how when I opened up this podcast and I was talking about how I got let go and, you know, my journey and like it's helps to relate to the job seeker who is going through that same, like I was in your shoes. I use those terms, like I was in your shoes. I know exactly what it's like to be where you are. You know, I didn't handle it well. I had anxiety and stress and fear, like putting yourself in their shoes again to show them that, hey, like here's where I was, but here are the things that I did. Here's where I'm at now, that transformational story. So that's really good advice, because that way they can see themselves in you. And they don't feel like you're so far detached. Like a lot of times you see people, like to your point, you see people on social media. Oh, you got 1 million followers. Oh, you're like I'm not even close to you, right?
Yep, for sure. Even in a room, it's like when I jumped off the stage, it's like how many people in here are owners, and it's like relating that way. And even the ones that weren't, you know, so there was like 80% of the room that was. It's like the ones that raised their hands, like cool. I am you because this is where I started, right? And it's like, but then I'm like the other 20% of you can always find the reciprocation of relating to them too. It's like, I was you, you know, I know that because I got laid off, you know, you can go into those stories and all these things. It's like, I understand maybe you're aspiring to be like 80% of these other people, like not even me, like 80%, like the other 80% of the people that are in here. Let's talk about this as a holistic approach today and talk about that journey. So I'll give everybody in this room something. You know, but then I can also change the talk and tailor it to the majority of the room when I ask those questions to see who's actually in there.
Love that. Relatability, getting putting yourself in their shoes, getting them to identify with who you are. I love that. That's great. That's great.
Speaking coaching here. It's cool.
No, it really is. You know, I'm actually taking that next step in my speaking career. I've done a few stages. I haven't done a lot of stages, to be transparent. I've done a lot of this podcast and stuff. I know I am a professional speaker, but I haven't done it from stage enough.
This is a stage, bro. I mean, Pete Vargas calls this a stage.
A stage, right? You have digital stages, you have physical stages, right? I just haven't done the keynote. The physical stages, I haven't done enough. I've done a handful.
We're on stage on Clubhouse right now, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. On stage, that's right. But yeah, like mastering the in-person, you know, keynote stages. I know it's different, right? It's a little bit different. So
there's other techniques too. I mean, I should do like a whole course on this sometime, or even just a podcast. But it's like what I did in that moment when I jumped off the stage, because it brings you down at the same level as everybody. You know, if you've seen Tony Robbins do this, he does it too, masterfully, right? But going into the crowd is something to get on the same level, so they're more open. So it's like those softing moments, those teaching moments when you want to connect. And then if you want to make an offer to them, you know, if you're going to sell from stage, then at that moment towards the end, you get back up on the stage.
On the stage, because now you're with the authority, the conviction.
Bingo. You got it. Yep.
So, okay. Do you know Amberly Lago?
Not familiar with her, no.
She's a big keynote speaker too. Me and her went and saw Tony Robbins, and literally he was right. I mean, we had VIP.
Oh, yeah, dude.
This dude is spitting on me. He's standing up and he's got his big old hands, man. He's doing his thing. Yep. Oh my gosh. Talk about the energy, man. That guy, he knows how to for sure transfer energy through a room. I was jumping up and down. Like it was kind of cult like. It was awesome.
Right on. Well,
it was pretty cool.
Reciprocation too. I do some of those things. It's like, if this is really you, it's like say I, and then they're like I, and they'll come back. It's engaging everybody, and there's techniques, yes, but when you peel those layers off, and you just present who you are, it's going to shine through no matter what. And that's the biggest thing that I can do, whether it's a podcast, a stage on Clubhouse, wherever, that character that you think that you are, that's not you. Peel that layer back and then find out that other thing that you're not, and then peel that layer back and then just keep getting down to who you are. And it's just an insecurity. That's it. You're afraid to show who you really are because you think that people won't like you. Ooh. But imagine after you show who you really are, the right people will like you, and the right people will become your community.
Ooh, that's so good. And if you're putting on a mask, you definitely people ain't gonna like you because they're gonna see right through that mask anyways.
You're just a politician, right?
Ooh, and we don't like those. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Hey, listen, if you ever come to Dallas and do any keynotes down here, man, I'd love to come check you out, man. I'd love to come, watch you speak, live in person. I'd love to see that just to see if I can pick up a thing here or there. Sure. But okay, a couple more questions before we go to the audience and just to see if they had any questions. And we'll try to do this rapid fire. So I know you have a mastermind program. Yeah. Can you tell us about the program? Who does it help, and where can the audience go to find more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's all in CEO.com. What I'm doing right now is I am accepting private coaching one-on-one at the moment. Okay. If you're interested in that. I mean, if you're not, that's fine, dude. I got so much free content out there, like podcasts and everything else. Please just follow me. And if there's something that you think is a fit for you, I'd rather. I love reaching millions and knowing that I'm affecting millions, and then I like getting down to personal relationships too. But it's like, any way you want to connect and any way I can help you, I want to. So if it's right for you, then cool. If you think that that's right to have a sounding board as me, then fantastic. Let's roll through that. That's all in CEO. But those links, I mean, follow me on social, Instagram, everything. It's you'll see all the links there. But if it's right, DM. I appreciate you plugging that for me. But I just hope, same thing, dude. I just hope I brought people value today in our conversation. You
definitely did. I mean, I know there's so many lessons in this episode, for sure, that we've gone over quite a bit. I know I got more questions here. We might have to do another episode, okay? Because I got more questions here, but we're running out of time.
Part 2 sequel coming up, everyone. Yes.
Absolutely. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go. That's another thing. What's so interesting to me is I've been on podcasts before where like the host is like, "Oh no, I've had you on before." Yeah. Like they don't want to have you on again. Like, no, we've done Trevor Houston. Right? Like, I don't want to, we're not going to do it. No, I'm like, that's so silly. That's so silly to me. I'm like, especially if that person was a great guest, like if you have someone like yourself, I'm like, oh dude, Rick's the man. Heck yeah. I would love to have Rick again. You know what I mean? And
thank you, brother. Yeah.
Like, cause this is a fluid conversation. I know the next one is going to be completely different from this one, right? Yep. Like it's not going to be the same conversation. Probably be even better because we've had this one.
Yeah. Bingo.
Just saying.
Well, you've already got the questions lined up.
Yeah, I've already got a few. I got a few more questions in here, but let's do this. I would like to go to the Clubhouse audience, but before I do that, I would like to tell everybody that's watching in online. Angeline Moore, good to see you. She says great interview. George says great session today. Love that, guys. If you're tuning in on any of the social media channels right now, if you could go ahead and rate this episode, okay? Why don't you rate it? Okay, you're watching us all the time. Is this a 1 or is this
5
a 10?
stars? Come on.
Yeah, give me a 5-star. Yeah, 5-star rating. Roll. Yeah, put the stars in the chat. Okay, put some stars in the chat. Let's see over here on Clubhouse. I see Empress and Tarika and Damaris and Mary Lynn. Good to see you, Judith. All of you over there on Clubhouse. Tiffany Jones. Good to see you. Tiffany Jones is going to be coming on the show very soon. I know you.
Awesome.
She's probably thinking I'm ignoring her. I'm not ignoring you. I got you coming. Okay, Tiffany, you are coming on the Who You Know show very soon. So, guys, tell us in the chat. Rate this. Okay. I want you to tell me what are your thoughts on this episode? 1, is it a 10? Is it a 5-star episode or what do we need to do to improve? Just give us a shout in the chat. Love to hear from you. And then I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the audience in Clubhouse. If you have a question for Rick, okay, this guy has done a lot of stuff. He just took a company public, all these things. Maybe you have some questions for him. Love to just open up